Hi everyone. For this week's task, we're going to be applying psychology to the real world and our current world today, which is coronavirus, COVID-19. I got this inspiration from another teacher. So for your task, what I'd like you to do is choose one topic in psychology. So when I say topic, I mean social influence, attachment, memory, etc. Choose a topic and write a minimum of 300 to 600 words applying your chosen topic to the coronavirus. Of course, you can write more words. It's completely up to you, but between 300 to 600, a minimum of 300 words. So in terms of displaying this, I'd like you to use a PowerPoint or Word document, or I'm going to give you full creative control, anything of your choosing. Just ensure that it's a minimum of 300 words. Please make use of images as well, so you can write it in the format of a newspaper article, you can write a newsletter, or pretty much anything. Just ensure that it's somewhat academic, and you're making use of images as well. So the deadline for this is Thursday at 5 p.m. please. Your answer needs to include the following: so specialist terminology, because we are studying psychology, although we're not chartered psychologists, we're going to act like some, and I want you to use psychological language. Show me you know what you're talking about, using specialist terminology, using research and crediting researchers as well. So if you're talking about Bowlby's research, how it's impacts, or how we can see the impact of maternal deprivation in coronavirus maybe. Make sure you're stating the names of researchers and possible research that can support your theory. And also the key thing, application. So if you just write about the background of the coronavirus and how it looks and the different spikes and all of that, that's well and dandy, but you need to apply psychology to the coronavirus. So please make sure application, we need that. Okay, our AAT2 skills need to be on point. So social influence we can use as an example to apply to the pandemic. So conformity, we can speak about different types of conformity. So compliance, for example, people might privately disagree that they should stand 2 meters apart from someone. However, when they're out in public, due to the demands of the social group and the social pressure they're experiencing, they then conform, and so therefore they're engaging in compliance. We can speak about internalization or identification as well. With regard to obedience, we can think about how Milgram stated why people obey, and it's the idea of a legitimate authority. So we see scientists telling us to stay home, so we regard them as legitimate authorities, so we're more likely to follow them. If people regard Boris Johnson as a legitimate authority, then they may be likely to follow his advice as well, and stay at home. So obeying what these people in power, or these legitimate authority types, say because we deem them to be legitimate. Or alternatively, you can talk about an authoritarian personality. So someone who has an authoritarian personality is more likely to obey during this coronavirus pandemic because, they see people at the top of the hierarchy as the most important, and so we'll listen to what they have to say. You could talk about locus of control in social influence as well. So people who have a high internal locus of control, we could say, will be more likely to rebel instead of obey. So people going to do barbecues in their house and inviting loads of people over, it may be because they have a high internal locus of control, or alternatively, someone who fully obeys has a high external locus of control. So these different factors will lead different people to follow the rules during this pandemic. We could think about attachment as well and link it to maybe Schaffer and Emerson stages of attachment, and the idea that maybe infants may not be able to form multiple attachments because their grandparents might not live in their house and are unable to visit their grandparents or their aunties or their uncles or their cousins, so will not be able to form multiple types of attachment. And we could also talk about maternal deprivation as well. So let's say a parent or parents fall sick to coronavirus, they may have to be separated from that infant. And how will this impact that infant? Will we have a wealth of teenage delinquents in about 10 to 15 years? Because of this coronavirus, you can sort of explore that. Or alternatively, you could think about the idea that parents are actually are staying home more often, and so are able to build quality bonds with those children. So they may be more intellectual, they may be more healthy and stable adults in the future. So yeah, it may have deepened their attachment to their parents. Excuse me. Oh, next we have memory. So things like, you could talk about short-term memory, the capacity of short-term memory, duration, and all of that kind of stuff, encoding of the short-term memory. And you can link that to slogans. So we have stay home, protect the NHS, save lives, stay alert, control the virus, save lives. So all of these different slogans, if you think about or link it back to Miller's chunking method, they're usually not more than 9 words. Because we can chunk 7 plus or minus 2, and so it means we're more likely to remember it, or remember that information. Then we have types of long-term memories, and things like washing our hands and all that kind of stuff, links to like procedural memory, so you can sort of explore that as well. And all of these things are done to ensure that we are able to retain this information. Next, approaches. We can talk about the social learning theory, and with all of the examples I've shown, I may not have explored a lot of them in depth or in detail, but it's up to you to do that independent sort of application using psychology to the coronavirus. So I only use 3 approaches for this one, but of course you can do the psychodynamic approach, the humanistic approach, etc. It's just an outline for you to sort of understand what you need to do. So the social learning theory, so we could link that to the idea of vicarious reinforcement. So if you see a role model who is social distancing, who is staying at home, who is wearing a mask, you might see them being rewarded, which is not actually getting the coronavirus. So you're more likely to then imitate this behaviour as well. So social learning theory, all about imitation and observation. So we go outside, we see people wearing masks, we might be more likely to wear masks as well. The cognitive approach, I think I read a report on patients who had coronavirus during their sort of, not episode, but during their illness, there were things like disorganized thoughts, confusion, all of that kind of stuff, and we can somewhat link that to the cognitive approach. And then we have the biological approach. Excuse me. Maybe people are more genetically vulnerable to actually being infected by the coronavirus. We've seen that Black people are, I think it's 4 times more likely to be infected by the coronavirus. So maybe there's also genetic vulnerability there. Psychopathology. As you can imagine, it might have a big impact on people who suffer from OCD. So it may mean that they're engaging in compulsions more often to reduce that emotional characteristic of anxiety, and their cognitive, or the cognitive aspects such as overthinking and, irrational thoughts may be enlarged because of this virus. So how it has impacted these people with OCD. We could also think about depression using Ellis's ABC model. So the activating event itself would be the coronavirus. It will change someone's belief, and then the consequence will therefore then be depression. So people might be more likely to have depression during this pandemic, particularly because they're being isolated from other people as well. And lastly, phobias. So things like classical conditioning. We might learn to actually fear germs, so we might learn new phobias, and it might impact people who have things like agoraphobia, so not ever leaving your house. They may be even more likely not to leave their house during this particular pandemic. Research methods, lastly, so things like experimental designs, vaccine trials that are going on, population validity in these vaccine trials. Is it representative of the entire population? Is coronavirus high in temporal validity? Yes, it is, because it's happening right now. And then you can start thinking about ethical issues as well. So are these participants given the right to withdraw, informed consent, etc.? I think I also read something about a particular government wanting to test coronavirus treatments in Africa, so you could include that there. So things like, are these people given informed consent? Do they have the right to withdraw, etc.? And then we can also look at how data is presented when we're talking about the coronavirus. So is it statistical data? So things like you can see on the right, or are they talking or providing qualitative data? So how the corona patients might feel, etc. All of those sorts of things. So you can delve into how they're presenting the data, and natural and field experiments. Again, I have an article which I will link below or in the description box, speaking about how, I'm not sure what his name is, I can't remember, but a researcher is sort of urging schools to reopen so they can see how coronavirus transmissions differ in different locations, so in rural areas, in urban areas, and using schools to sort of experiment this idea. So yeah, that is it. Please make sure you're putting your best into this particular piece and really trying to be unique in your write-up as well. I will link some websites down below as well that you can use. So things like Simply Psychology may be useful to you in terms of research. Psychology Today, there might be some actual articles on psychologists who are speaking about coronavirus and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll just make sure I link anything that I've mentioned in this video in the description box. If you need any help or you're unsure about anything, please make sure you email me.